And every year we had this thing called National Epilepsy Week, and we had to decide on a theme for it, and we had to set up a press conference in London and issue press releases and all the usual stuff. And I thought we ought to maybe do something on sudden unexpected death, which was a difficult subject. I had given a talk on risk factors in epilepsy to an international conference which was mainly for lay people in Dublin, where I had touched on it. And actually, just a lot of doctors came and said, you should never have mentioned that as a terrible thing to do. Well, how dare you? And it was not a popular thing to do. Well, I think what it was, I was a trained psychiatrist, so it was not a problem in a way for me to raise these issues with patients. But the training of neurologists in those days had absolutely no way of connecting with this issue at all. And the sort of people who became neurologists, I think I can say this from 15 years of being retired and not offending anyone. Okay, but in those days, the idea of actually having that sort of conversation with your patient was unknown to them. Neurology was basically a diagnostic specialty. Very few things you could actually treat. Epilepsy, there were 2 or 3, 4 drugs maybe that could be used, and otherwise they tended to just refer back to the GP or follow them up for years and years and years without really doing very much, or refer to a physiotherapist if they had some other neurological condition. It wasn't really an active management sort of specialty. I know that because I did it for a bit, and I was just aware that you weren't really interested in just what was going on between people's ears so much as you should have been. And I was a neuropsychiatrist because I trained in both neurology and psychiatry, and this was unusual to say the least. And there were only about half a dozen of us in the country anyway. It's now quite a big thing, and it's a faculty in the Royal College and so on, which is a good thing. But I was kind of one of the first people to do it, I suppose. Anyway, because I'd given the odd talk to neurologists about it, I got this letter from a consultant neurologist in another part of the country who said, look, I've read what you've written, and I've heard you speak on it, and it's obviously a very interesting topic, and it's important. But see, I had a patient who died, and the patient had a partner who keeps asking me questions about it, and I cannot give them all the answers that they want. I'm paraphrasing politely here. Can you write to them and tell them that this is a real thing that can happen? So I did. And the person that I wrote to actually was Jane Hanna, who was then a barrister and a fellow of Keble College, Oxford, and lecturer in law at Oxford University. But anyway, I wrote her a letter about it, and she was very gracious, and we corresponded for a bit. And I thought, she's such an obviously intelligent and articulate person, and just the sort of person we might need to front up a press conference in London. So I took a risk. It was a risk looking back on it to just say, look, I want to set this up, and I'm in charge of organising this. And do you want to come and just give a talk to some, journalists about it and answer questions and so on? And I'd never actually met her at that point. And I suppose, looking back on it, she might have been completely crazy, but she wasn't, of course. She turned up and was absolutely brilliant. Working with Jane, we were able to set out the first international conference on the subject, bringing together all people researching in it practically in the whole world. That's in 1996. And that was produced a whole supplement in the journal Epilepsia, which is the sort of top journal for epilepsy in the world. And which was good. That really moved things on a lot. We have demonstrated that you can reduce mortality by just treating epilepsy properly. And that was always my thing. Yes, we do need research into, and the Americans and other research grant awarding bodies got the idea that we've got to have special research into this to look at some mechanism in the brain that, again, stop it, right? And actually, yes, in a way, but actually we know that you only have SUDEP really if you're still having seizures. It's always seizure related, and if you don't have seizures, you won't die of it. So the more you can do to stop people having seizures, And the top thing of that is that the people must know the reason why they're taking their tablets. Actually, yes, recently. I mean, the last fatal accident inquiry in Scotland, it got involved in. I'd done 2 of them in time, just as I was retiring. And it was revolving around a lot. The person who died, clearly, who was very intelligent, had never been told the reason why they had to take the medication. And so they didn't take it when they didn't like it. And the neurologist firmly believed that this was inappropriate to tell people this because it would frighten them in some way. Like I said, people have their services shut down when they retire because it suits the management to rearrange the money in a different way. And you have to start all over again. We get these things telling us the NHS is an organisation that likes to learn and so on. And no, what it learns is that you can shut stuff down and you have to start all over again. A number of times in the epilepsy world that has happened. Yeah, it's a whole other topic. So you've got to keep it going. Got to keep up the pressure all the time. Never let go. Then you get somewhere.